I'm Andre J, and today we're going to talk about Waaave Pool HD long delays. So long delays, what I mean by long delays is that the video delay is going to be very long. Um, so this is a sort of thing which I kind of feel like this might be like dark chocolate and taking baths, where it's the kind of thing you only sort of get into when you start to get a little bit older. Honestly, I'm not really sure that I've ever seen anyone working with wave pool, video waves, or gravity waves. I haven't really seen a lot of evidence that anybody is working with the really long delays that much. Which is kind of strange if you think about it, because that's like, you know, the one thing, like there's a lot of stuff that you could do. I mean, you can't really do like rotations and too much Z displacement with most video mixers and internal feedbacks unless you get into like Grass Valley stuff or like the later era, the last generation of SD video mixers. That would be SDHD, SDI based stuff where you can do a lot of geometry things. So you could be able to do a fair amount of wave pool stuff with like a Grass Valley Indigo or something in a more complicated and stroby and annoying way. But what you can't do with any of the video mixers is have long delays. I feel like that is the one really kind of like killer cool thing about like wave pool, video waves, gravity waves, and now wave pool HD. And like I've mentioned before, Wave Pool HD has 4 times the delay length. That means 8 seconds of delay compared to 2 seconds. 8 seconds of delay in video time is like, practically speaking, it's very, very crazy. That's a very large amount of delay. That's kind of insane. So we're not really going to mess around with that so much. We're just going to mess around with 4 seconds, because if I did one on the full 8 seconds, this video would probably be like 3 hours long, and I would need to take a break in the middle to like eat lunch. So we'll just stick with the 4-second delay, which is about what I've got right now. I've got the slider set to like right smack dab in the middle. So you can see that everything I do is going to kind of echo everywhere. And what I want to do is kind of like have a little bit of movement happening everywhere on the screen. And what I want to show you is some pretty cool feedback stuff you can do with very, very long delays. So it's not going to be, you do have to have a lot of patience. So I've got Toroidal Universe on right now, so let's just see what happens when I zoom out. So you can see these edges. We're going to get some pretty weird stuff happening on the edges. So just straight up zooming out, and we're getting some interesting oscillations on the edges. And if I stick my head into the edge, let's see what happens. How does that reverberate in and out? Ooh, we're getting some fun kind of mirror things happening. Oh wait, this is mirror mode, not Toroidal Universe, I believe. Just double check. Yeah. So that's off. There we go. We've got mirror mode on, or no, that's Toroidal Universe on, I believe. Here we go. So now I've just cycled through all the different kind of settings, so that's all going to reverberate. So that's the one sort of like big thing about very, very long delays that is worth sort of like mentioning, is that everything you do, all of your control changes, everything you alter is going to like reverberate constantly. So, which can be a good thing or can be a bad thing. It's frustrating if you do something that you really don't like the looks of, and that's just going to echo in there constantly. That's going to be kind of pretty frustrating, most likely. But on the other hand, you can do, you can basically use the long ass delay as a sort of a looper. So it's going to do this kind of stuff that this, like, it's just like you're never going to be able to do this with the really short delays. You're never going to be able to get this kind of feedback action happening where it just kind of like loops your effects like that. So that's one thing where I'm saying that like the long ass delays are pretty crucial. And the more I kind of move around here, so just imagine you're doing this with like just straight up some camera feedback stuff. I mean, if you've seen any of the sort of like video performance video things I've been doing this year, it's all long ass delays. That's kind of like my new thing. And I guess, you know, I'm not like super frustrated that no one else is doing it, because that means it's like my stuff looks very, very unique. But, you know, at a certain point, people are going to figure this one out. I think I'm going to make another video on the gravity waves, showing using the long delays for stuff on that one to expose the world to these stranger techniques. So the main thing about long ass delays is you kind of have to have the patience to sit and let things like reverberate. It's not just going to be like as immediate as like the fast stuff. But here's a kind of interesting thing. I'm going to take the delay, make it very short, and then make it long again. So, and I've made it long. So we've saved a little bit of that like fast feedback in there. Woo! So we could count 4 seconds, make sure that I'm legit here. So the next time we get that fast zoom out, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, 4 seconds of delay. So doing really, really tiny changes to get used to things is important. What I'm gonna do here is reset the buffer, and I'm gonna zoom the buffer out some more. So one of the other cool things you can do is you're still going to be able to get some of the sort of reaction diffusion patterns and the crazy stuff like that, but it's going to take them a longer time to form. So got to be patient. I'm going to have to keep saying like mildly amusing, or at the very least distracting things while we wait for everything to kind of form up. But what I'm going to do is slowly turn up the sharpen. Let's turn this to about, I think probably about 11 o'clock is going to be good for this one. And I want to actually zoom the heck in. So I'm going to make maximum zoom here. So you can see my face gets very large very quickly here. We've got sharpen at about noon. So usually you want to wait. So say your delay is about 4 seconds. You're going to want to wait possibly like, I don't know, about like 30 seconds to see what happens with that kind of stuff. I might want to turn up brightness a very tiny bit too. But you can see we're getting some crispy edges here. And what happens, let's just see what happens when I key myself out. Let's just see what happens to all these crispy edges. It's going to be very distracting because like parts of my face are going to come in. You can see my tea-stained teeth happening. I'm going to bring up the brightness a little bit here. And now let's add some more sharpening. Ooh. Pop back in there a second. Turn up brightness some more. Zoom out a tiny bit because I think we're getting going off the frame before anything. Oh, here we go. So check that out. So you can see these edges, the crispy keying edges, are gonna like that's where you're gonna start to get these patterns forming. Everything looks a little bit more crystally and crunchy every time it comes around. And this is one of the kinds of things you can only do with a long ass delay. Because the sharpen filter sort of reverberates into the delay fundamentally differently when it's like a series of like, what's 120 frames instead of 1 frame. When you do that 1 frame, it's just the 1 frame over and over again, and that sharpen filter works the same way a standard issue sharpen filter works, where it's just kind of like you just run it a couple of times over and over again, and it's going to do, ooh, now we're starting to get, I think I probably need to like jack up the total brightness range to work with the new system. Make a note of that. Displace. But this really weird kind of stuff happening here. Let me zoom it out a little bit too. So let's bring things in and watch them get smaller and smaller. Very, very noisy here. Turn sharpen down to kind of minimum here. Maybe what I want to do is turn up a temporal filter slightly. Ooh. That's pretty good. So the one thing I kind of really wanted to like hammer on here is see that kind of like noise happening in the background. That's sort of the big thing that's like way different about another big thing that's different about using long ass delays is it's going to amplify the kind of just like random little like pixely noise stuff in the background a lot. So I took the opportunity to just kind of like stop recording and let this kind of do its own thing for about like 3 or 4 minutes. So now you can kind of see what happens when you just like let it go. So we're going to get the same kind of like overall patterns we get with like very short delays, but they're going to kind of move and seethe in a different sort of way. What I want to do next is start to play around with rotations. So let's do tiny rotation here. Let me make that a little bit larger. And we do want to keep this mirror mode on for sure. Let me zoom this out a little bit. So here's kind of, I think some of you might have played with like the mirror mode on the old school wave pool a bit and maybe found it a little frustrating, a little hard to do at certain times. I think the one thing that mirror mode really wants is very, very long delays. Give things a lot longer to like develop. Let me turn down sharpen a tiny bit. It's getting a little noisy for me. I'm going to turn on hue, turn up the hue a bit, turn up the saturation, and we're going to want to give this a little bit of time to develop. So while it's developing, I'm just going to talk a little bit about other development plans I have. So I've mentioned before in a couple videos and in text form that I'm going to be updating artificial life and temporal vortex to run on this too. My basic thoughts is that what I want them to do is I'm going to start off and just do a very, very basic thing like with the wave pool here where it's just change the resolution and change anything else about the processing that doesn't change the actual synthesis structure that happens in there. So keep it very simple. Do a very simple and basic update. So everyone who's used the old versions can pretty much use them immediately without having to learn anything new whatsoever. But the other thing is that especially with artificial life, what I want to do is have a video oscillator system that is kind of redesigned, optimized for this hardware, and is will have like a GUI and some more complex things happening, like gravity waves. But what I think I'll probably do is just completely redesign from scratch, so I don't have to do the whole development hell of like going through every single function and then rewriting it for a new thing. Like start over from scratch, write it a lot more modular, because I don't know if anyone's ever seen my code before, it can be a real mess. I'm going to turn down sharpen a tiny bit now since we've got kind of so much going on in here. Then I'm going to turn up the, what do you call it, temporal filter a tiny bit. So kind of give it a tiny bit of blurring happening in here. And let's do a little bit more hue rotation, see what's going to happen in there. But yeah, so I'm going to make basically like different instruments that are inspired by all the past instruments and also keep the past instruments going because the whole thing of like updating Wave Pool into this, it took me like basically about 6 hours once I finally had all the hardware and like an indoors office to work with. So porting most of the things will be very quick and easy. But for me personally, what I want to play with, if I want to play with like something like Artificial Life that has 4 video oscillators, I want to have a GUI for that, and also I want to be able to use, I'm developing for the Gravity Waves update this year, save states and macros, so I want to have saves and macros for that kind of stuff too. I think, yeah, I'll probably just keep all the old VSERPI ports and just keep porting them as long as that's like as long as it's as easy as this, and then like have the more complicated ones that are the sort of stuff that, you know, it's kind of like this stuff is good. I like this stuff. I like the old VSERPI things, but me personally, what I want to use in terms of like performance and like as an instrument is something a lot more complicated, like gravity waves. Like I totally get a lot of people didn't really like gravity waves. Totally understandable, but it's my favorite kind of thing to develop and to work on. So I'm gonna make sure for every couple of these that I do, where it's like something that's like optimized for what people actually want to use. Most people actually want to use. I'll give myself time every couple of years to do the stuff that I really want to make, and that would be also like the video sampler thing too. Which I think for the video sampler, I'll try to keep that right in between the, what do you call it, a gravity waves kind of thing and a wave pool kind of thing. You will definitely need a GUI for a video sampler, but I don't think you'd need like 500 different menu screens for it, like in gravity waves. Okay, so we're at a pretty interesting point here. What I want to do is invert the color. And of course, we're not going to get any kind of crazy strobing because that's 4 seconds. That's not really a strobe. I'm going to remove all the internal video here, and we're actually just going to like pause this for a moment and then come back to it in like probably like a minute or two. All right, here we go. Giving everything time to move a little bit. I just did a little bit of zooming in and out while we were in there, but this is sort of like a good example of this is some crazy busy shit. This is some super fractally crazy busy nonsense here, and I just kind of want to show you this. I'll like key myself back in for a second. Hi, and then let's just see what happens to these echoes as they go. And then while we have this kind of echo going in and out like that, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Let's see what happens to the edges. We're going to get some chunky repeats in the edges here. Now I'm going to start to zoom back in a little bit. So now that we have like some tiny little Andres saying hi, I want to zoom in and have those tiny little Andres saying hi kind of coming out at you. So we've like totally degraded the image. It's like super distorted at this point, and now just adding tiny zoom ins, we're going to get these copies coming back at you. So yeah, it's a totally different psychological thing. And now that we have, I think, the thing seated enough, I'm going to just like crank up the zooms and have the zooms kind of go all the way. Oh, that's a very distorted Andre. Hello. Hi. I sort of wonder what it'd be like to like have like an audio delay that goes along with this too. That would be kind of pathological. I think I want to pull the color out. See what this looks like just as a grayscale. Of course, it's going to take a second. or I'll filter down quite a bit. So this is pretty weird and wild here. Let's see what happens if I key myself in for a second. And now let's see what happens if I turn up the sharpen a lot. Definitely going to have to boost up the brightness a bit for the new processor situation. Good, I'm giving myself all this time to play with it. I'm going to remove these rotations, I think. Let's de-rotate everything. So, I'm like right in the middle here. Yeah, this is pretty absurd. Alright. Like I said, I don't want this video to be 3 hours long. So let's try one more long delay experiment. So, let's see, I think I've reset most of the things. Yeah, still got long delays. So we turned off toroidal universe, correct? There we go. Now we're going to get standard issue. Got a lot of sharpening happening here. You can kind of see that around all those edges there. That's pretty fun. I'm going to zoom way the flip out here. Give this a moment to kind of reverberate into it. Oh yeah, and I just want to give a shout out to everybody we visited, everybody who helped out with all the workshops this summer. It's a pretty astoundingly long list. I'm trying to put together the whole thing of like formal thank yous for this phase shift tour that we can like publish in our email newsletter and also add links to everybody on our website. It was super awesome to see everyone from the internet in real life, and super cool to meet so many like fun and inspiring and cool video artists around the country. So here we go. So we're going to try to play around with this kind of a feedback oscillator here, the one where you've got the rotations. So yeah, we cranked the sharpen all the way up. Let me take sharpen down to about middle. I'm going to pull myself out here. And let's start to rotate around. And I think I want to do some symmetry here. So we should be able to get some pretty crazy fractal shit happening here. So we've got a pretty big rotation there. I'm going to turn up the X and Y rotations and, or X and Y, what do you call it, displacements. And we'll just kind of like keep moving them around, and we're going to notice what happens is that all of the little movements we do are reverberating into there. So it's going to kind of like keep holding all that stuff in there. Let me zoom in a little bit, and then let me zoom out, back out. Turn up the rotations a bit, and ooh, that's pretty nice. So everything I do, I'm not moving anything right now. Here's my hands. Whoops, kind of totally, not totally, but biffed that one up a little bit. So you can see that we're able to kind of like set things off and have them just kind of like keep going on their own. And it's really just a question of like touching it like every 4 seconds. Just do one little sort of like geometry thing on the keyboard, on the MIDI controller every 4 seconds, and we're going to get that to kind of like hold into the buffer, and that gives this feedback a long time to stretch out. And we got super fractally things happen. Let me rotate things back the other way. some mushroom trees going on here. You know, I like some mushroom trees. So let me seed the mushroom tree. Oh yeah, so that's what I'm talking about. This is the kind of stuff anyone who's seen me do like live video in the last couple years has probably seen something like this. And this is how I've been doing it. Long ass delays. And I'm not even touching anything right now. Should probably make another video set up for this so you can actually see my face and what my hands are doing when I'm keyed out here, but this had to be kind of quick and dirty if I wanted to get things done before getting back on the road again. But yeah, now we've got some very Escher fractals happening here. Yeah, I could probably just stop talking now and let this video record for like another hour. I'd probably keep doing some pretty crazy stuff. I don't think I will do that. Let me change the Z a bit, zoom it in and out. Some things kind of held in there. Let's change the X a little bit. Whoa, yeah. And let's alter Y a little bit. Ooh. Do some wacky ass rotations. So yeah, this will be the part of the video where I kind of stop talking, but I'm just going to let it kind of go on this and see where it ends up. So yeah, formally, I'm not talking in this video anymore. This video is just going to be weird fucking fractals.